We have an exciting show for you guys today. On a fairly regular basis, I like to step back and reevaluate the Hedera network to make sure it's on track for me to stay involved. And pretty much every time I've done that, I've come to the same conclusion, that Hedera is executing better than pretty much every other network out there. And as part of your own evaluation, you can certainly use the information you get in these videos. I try to make it as accurate as possible. That said, do your own research. Make sure that you're finding all the stuff that makes you confident in the investments that you're making. So welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull. I do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but I don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. I'm just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first thing we're going to dig into is SealSQ and WiseSat. They are the company that are pioneering transactional Internet of Things, and that is in the DePIN space, decentralized physical infrastructure. They're far ahead of a lot of their other competitors. They already have satellites in orbit that are ready to communicate with the Internet of Things. Now, there was a pretty exciting update that came out this week, and this is right on the back of what they announced just a couple weeks ago, and that's a collaboration with Saudi Arabia to pretty much handle all of their transactional Internet of Things aspirations that they're trying to meet by 2030. But in this latest announcement, they're talking about a new set of chips that they have that are quantum resistant that are going to go in these devices. SealSQ correctly states that it's just a matter of time before quantum systems can break widely used asymmetric security protocols such as RSA or elliptical curve algorithms that protect billions of IoT devices today. It will soon be mandatory to implement post-quantum cryptography to secure your devices and IoT ecosystems. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has already defined appropriate cryptographic protection that can be reached using Kyber and dilithium algorithms. But what you need is a cryptographic module powerful enough to run them effectively while still keeping you safe from all other existing threats. That's where the QS7001 secure hardware platform from SealSQ comes in. It offers CCEAL 5+ certified security and is optimized for Kyber and dilithium quantum resistant algorithms to face the latest attack scenarios. And these are the chips that are being installed in countless transactional Internet of Things devices, like those that are being used in Saudi Arabia's retail, finance, smart cities, healthcare, and transportation to meet their Saudi Vision 2030 digitization goals. These devices will communicate and, more importantly, transact using a Hedera token to facilitate value transfer. So SealSQ is continuing to innovate leading up to the launch of their second constellation of transactional Internet of Things satellites here in the fall. That's going to be done, of course, by SpaceX, and I'd actually like to be there for that launch, but we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But one thing that is definitely going to happen is I'm going to do another interview with Carlos. He is the CEO of SealSQ and WiseSat and WiseKey to get some more information. So if you have any particular questions about what they're doing at SealSQ, make sure you get those to me and I'll try to ask them of Carlos. All right, so the next thing I want to get into is probably the most exciting thing that I've participated in within the crypto space, and that's up-only gaming with Karate Combat. In just 1 week, Karate Combat is going to have Karate Combat 47, and this is going to serve as your reminder to make sure you get your karate tokens out of liquidity pools on dexes like SaucerSwap, centralized exchanges, or other wallets, and make sure you deposit those in your Karate Combat app before the snapshot is taken next Wednesday to make sure that you can participate in that up-only gaming. Because even though the returns might be pretty good there on SaucerSwap, at least for that time period while you can participate in up-only gaming, those are certainly going to be your best returns. Like I've said in the past, I've watched all kinds of sporting events, but if you have skin in the game, you have some tokens on these fighters, there's nothing that's more exciting than participating in Karate Combat up-only gaming. So we've seen Karate Combat in several different ways collaborate with other builders in the Hedera space, but we're seeing that again in the instance of The Mouth. Now, The Mouth is a decentralized promotion platform. It's completely unique within the crypto space, and they do these loudspeakers every week, and they promote all kinds of different things. But what they're doing now, I think, is really important. They are promoting other builders. In this instance, they are trying to promote SentX, more specifically tokens that are being sold on SentX right now as we go through these summer doldrums and people aren't paying quite as much attention. There are some really good deals that are popping up on our premier NFT marketplace. So the Mouth got out there and they're asking any individuals to put posts on X highlighting some of these really good deals you can find on SentX, and you can win significant rewards from the Mouth while at the same time supporting SentX and some of our NFT creators. Now, the one that I chose to support is again supporting another team that I'm really excited about in the space, and that's Earthlings. So I actually listed one of my HBAR Bull airships. It's one of the rarest ones out there, so the price isn't cheap. But if you do buy it, I'm going to send those proceeds over to some of the teams that are participating here. I'm going to send some of the proceeds to the Mouth, some of them to SentX, and then some of them to Earthlings. So this is just a really good initiative. I want to see more of this. I want to see more builders within the Hedera space working together to promote each other to make sure that our ecosystem is moving forward in the right direction. Now, of course, Earthlings is one of the games that's going to be launching in the Hedera ecosystem. I think that's probably going to be over the next 12 months. It's going to be a really busy time for Hedera Gaming. There's going to be several other games that are going to be launching over the next 24 months or so, including from studios like Circle of Games and Lithos, games like Astronova and Legends of the Past. Speaking of Astronova, you actually can participate in some of their gameplay. Now, this is just a demo. It's an early version of the game. You can play this on Steam. This being a beta version, of course, they're going to be doing upgrades throughout time. I think there's a new upgrade that's going to be coming out really shortly. So you might want to wait for that upgrade before you participate, but the game looks amazing. So for all of you gamers out there, go ahead and give it a shot. And now we're going to get into traditional finance. We're going to start off with the Valor HBAR ETP. That actually launched just a couple days ago on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and the closing bell was rung out by the Hashgraph Association and Valor themselves. So if you do know anybody over there in Europe that can participate in the Frankfurt Stock Exchange and might not be familiar with self-custody, going to crypto exchanges and so forth, this might be a really good option for them to dip their toe into the HBAR market. Now, I think this Valor fund is the first of many funds that's going to make Hedera and Hedera digital assets available to a much wider swath of investors. It's starting over there in Europe. Hopefully that's going to move to the United States and the APAC region as well. Now, sticking with the traditional financial markets, we're going to go to an exchange. I talked to Baptiste. He is building another commodities exchange on top of the Hedera network. He had some really good insights. I'm really excited about what he's building. This is not just a proof of concept. He is bringing this to market. So let's listen to what he has to say. Baptiste, welcome. Thanks for stopping by.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure. Baptiste, to start, can you just tell us about the exchange that you and your team have built?
Yes, sure. So I come from this world, commodity trading world, physical products that everyone is concerned about. It's like things you eat, things you put in your car, things you build your house with. And you actually don't pay attention too much how it is traded, how it is extracted, how it is exchanged all over the world. Those industries are just massive, and it involves huge supply chain, big international companies that usually control the market, and all those exchanges are done very confidentially. And that's what we are trying to break at Verto. We are trying to build an exchange that is much more open, that is completely transparent. Why does it matter? It matters because at the end of the day, all those information regarding commodity exchange are data that are kept by big international companies and that prevent people on the value chain, those who are really producing the commodities, to gain from their activity. So it's like a Web3 application, but for commodity products. And so imagine yourself, or imagine an economy in 10 years where you will be able to see publicly each person, each producer of commodity like coffee, for example. You will see their track record for the last 10 years. You will see the quality, if the quality has improved, if they have added certificates, specific agronomist practices, and they will own the data. So it will no longer be possessed by international company who might take advantage of it. It will be their data, and they will have the full benefit of it. So that's what we are creating, an exchange for commodity products to allow this openness.
And all of this information is going to be available on your website where the exchange lives?
Exactly. So you are already able to log on vertocommodities.io, and you can go on the transaction explorer. It's just a transaction explorer you might like you see on the Ethereum or Hedera, where you see the transactions, but the difference is we decode the information. So you are able to see what's behind the digits. You are able to see what product it is, what quality, what quantity, where it is, and when. So those are the basic information that would allow an open system of commodity exchange. So when it is public, when people are able to see what's there, they can challenge the information. So they can say, this producer or these intermediaries is moving one product from Costa Rica to New York. And so you are able to see how does he do his work, and you can add like information, and everyone will be able to challenge that a little bit like on Airbnb. You go on Airbnb, you say, I want to go to that host, not because this is the best location in Berlin, but just because he has the highest rate. So that's what we create. Only the difference with Airbnb is that this is public information. So we're not going to be here to cheat and hide some comments or hide anything. The people will be responsible for the data they input in the system and on the exchange. So that's really the novelty of Verto.
So it doesn't take a stretch to see how you're leveraging the trust layer of the internet with Hedera, but how exactly are you leveraging Hedera? I'd like to go into some more detail on that. And how did you choose the network that was right for you?
Sure. So initially we started project 2.5 years on Ethereum. So we coded smart contracts for product lot. So really like what a physical product is, where is it, when, what quantity is it, what quality. So we recrafted those sets of parameters that are generic to any commodity. So any commodity would have, even if it's oil, even if it's minerals, if it's coffee, if it's corn, you will have the same kind of parameters. So we crafted that very simple generic smart contract that creates actually kind of tokens, but multi-tokens, and it's coded on Solidity. And we migrated to Hedera 1.5 years ago because Hedera is much cheaper, much more performant. And we had, for us as developers, we had documentation. How can we improve our smart contracts? How can we get a bit of support on the public domain? So that was key, yes, to our development. And just to make a comparison, if we create one product lot on coffee today, it would cost us on Ethereum about 50 cents. And on Hedera, it's about 4 cents. So that's a game changer. So when you have like a commodity, it's not like a jewelry. It's not like a watch or a ring that has like very high value. So adding an NFT on top of jewelry has a marginal cost compared to the product cost. But on commodities, the marginal cost is much higher if you have high transaction fees. So that's why you cannot use like an expensive blockchain, and Hedera is perfect for that.
So as far as I understand right now, you're mainly using it for that trust, the provenance of information for these different commodities. But when will we get to the point where you're actually trading using the Web3 technology, actually using it for settlement and things along those lines?
Yes. So you have two things about commodities, and people usually get confused because when you create a product, you want to say, I have this product and I want to sell it. Okay. But actually, you have two things going in parallel because you cannot actually have your product harvested yet. It's going to be harvested in 1 year, but you already want to sell it in 1 year forward. So you have those informations that are different, the physical activity and the commercial activity. So what we created is a smart contract only for commercial contracts. And so these commercial contracts would have a reference to a product lot, an underlying product lot. But it will have also a life cycle. So if you sign a contract with someone, it doesn't mean that the ownership of the underlying product goes to the buyer. Because you still, if it's in 1 year, you will still have to deliver your product and you will have to get paid. So once those events happen on the commercial contracts, then it completes its life cycle and it triggers the transfer of ownership of the underlying product. So that's what we created, and that's how you could say it's a settlement process. But yes, a product lot can have multiple commercial contracts throughout its life cycle. And each commercial contracts will trigger a change of ownership. So that's what we created, 2 smart contracts, one for product lot and one for commercial contracts. And that's a novelty because when you look at a product on Verto, not only you see the physical logistic events and transformation and where it went, from what port, when did it shipped, when it loaded, but also you see how many people bought and sold that product lot. So you could see there is a commercial operation, like this product has been exchanged 10 times, for example, at certain port and remained in a warehouse through all along. If you see that on a public domain, you would say that I want to go straight to the source. Why would I need those intermediaries that are speculating and inflating the product price? So the idea is to have this transparency not only on the physical operation, but also on the commercial activity. Of course, we're not talking about publishing confidential information about bank details or any private information. What we're just showing publicly with the commercial contracts is when was the change of ownership. And if some actors are willing to show more openness, we could even say this public address belongs to that company, and they are willing to show that they actually have those activities on these specific flows from this specific region. And that will add credibility because you would say, oh, those guys, I trust them. I see what they've been doing for the last years. They seem to be a very good intermediary because it's difficult to originate cocoa bean from Ecuador, and they can do that and they get the right product. So why not buying from them? I think this is really different from the competition because what they do is confidential using blockchain. So they hash information before publishing it, and they don't show any activity on the commercial contracts. So yes, I hope it answered your question.
Absolutely. And it adds that credibility and efficiency, which is, of course, going to be really important in a capitalist society. But finally, I want to ask, what are your plans for future development, expansion, and so forth?
So our goal in 5 to 10 years is to have this interactive map of all the products that are exchanged through Verto. So you have this map, you are able to trace each product that is created. You can download automatically a certificate of origins with all the transformation steps, and you will be able to see all the events on Hedera. So if you want to challenge that information, you can just get the smart contract and publicly call the smart contract methods to retrieve information about those lots independently from our system. But what we want to build is a tool for everyone in the supply chain to understand how the supply chain is done, how many players are involved for a certain product line, where are the products, what are their origin, and to see that information live. So you could spot on our map, interactive map, how much is produced every month of that product, from which region, where is it sold, to whom is it sold, where is it going. And so for all the banks that are involved in the commodity finance, they could get that operation using the smart contracts internally without even logging to Verto. For third-party operators shipping lines, surveyors, ship agents, insurer. They have this data available already, and if they are part of this system, they can get the data in the same manner. So this is what we want to build. You could even have think about an NGO that looks at child labor, for example. They don't need to ask the trader or the producer some information. They can already go on the Verto map or even ask calling the smart contract methods. And they can see, oh, we have to go to that location because in that country, that region, we might have some work to do there. So that's super useful to anyone, even governments. Governments could imagine an exporting countries who needs to have more visibility on their export taxes. They could see live from Verto smart contract how much they export. So they could have a direct access to their revenue. So that's incredible. So that's what we want to build for all the actors of the commodity supply chains to have access to this data.
This sounds like, an industry that is ripe for disruption, not just the commodities industry, but it seems like you're going to touch every other industry that looks at it, from insurance to banking to even governments. So we appreciate that you're doing this on Hedera. Thanks so much for stopping by and explaining it today, and good luck.
Thank you, brother. It was a pleasure.
So I hope that Verto can act as a proof of concept for the New York Stock Exchange, the FTSE, the NASDAQ, and even the new exchange that's being now launched in Texas. I think that that's what a lot of these smaller exchanges are going to do. They're going to act as proof of concept for the really big exchanges out there, showing them what's possible in this space. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get into Shark Bites. We had some really good questions from the community, and of course, Rob had some great feedback, so let's check it out. Rob, welcome back. How's your week been?
Hey, Brandon. Yes, it's been a really good week, actually. We've got lots of project work underway, and I'm enjoying getting on the tools and just doing proper work, right? Lots of consultation, lots of interesting conversations going, both on the Hedera side and elsewhere. So, I'm pretty energized, actually. It's good.
Well, good. Hopefully we'll be hearing some stuff out of Australian Payments Plus before too long. All right, so the first question we have comes from Marusta13, who says, when can we expect the most recent meeting minutes from Hedera? Last one released was in March, has now been over 3 months. So, Rob, when can we expect the next meeting minutes? Were they sensitive?
I don't think there was anything more sensitive than usual in the April ones. So we had the meeting, and then the minutes are distributed for acceptance or in draft, and then there is a governing council meeting where they are voted on, ratified, and then I think it's usually 30 days. So I'm pretty sure the April ones have been or were ratified. So we had a meeting last week, so I would expect those ones to come out anytime soon. It's just part of the process. I know everyone's keen to see them, but there is a process, and I suspect April ones will be out fairly soon. Yeah.
All right, we'll be getting there soon enough. So the next one comes from Brian G, who asks about what Eric was talking about with the private networks. He says, hi, Brandon, question for Rob. Will the license fees for private versions of the network be paid to Hedera in a fixed US dollar amount payable in HBAR? And if so, will a portion of these fees go straight into account 800?
Oh, well, the details around this has still not been hammered out. The commercial viability of the private version of Hedera that Swirls Labs are now proposing and positioning in the market are yet to be determined. As Eric rightly said, those are the things that need to be discussed both with Hedera and actually from a commercial viability perspective with their clients, of which I am not aware of any at the moment. So, I guess this will be something that happens in due course. I can't speculate. I've got some ideas about how that might work, or how we might use that kind of hybrid or private version of Hedera, and how we might, as AP Plus, pay for a service such as that. But the details have not been discussed at all yet. So I suspect that'll be emerge in due course.
Well, I liked how Eric was focused on driving that value back
Sure.
to Hedera, even though they are focused on creating these private networks. All right,
Yep.
so next up, we have one from King Crypto 1337 who said, I really enjoyed this Shark Bites and the rest of the video. My question, where can I find which funded enterprise use case that is live is actually now buying their own HBAR off the open market and is self-funded, no longer reliant on grants? Now, Rob, I know there's a lot of curiosity around this. There are grants going out to enterprises just like there
Mm.
are for, the startups and the medium-sized businesses. But do you have any insights on this where we can actually find some of that information?
The information isn't published. I mean, it's not actually put out there because these are commercial agreements between the grant giving organizations and the enterprises. I mean, there are enterprises that are building on Hedera without actually taking a grant either. So there wouldn't be a single place where you could go to find all that, because why would they make it available except it's on a public ledger? So the sleuths in the community, and we've seen recently there's some pretty good sleuths in the community, would, I'm sure, be able to find that. I don't know, and I'm not across all the information, of course, but I don't know of any enterprise use cases that are in production other than Atma that are grant funded at the moment. So, but I haven't looked, to be honest. There are no use cases that we're aware of that are doing that much volume as Atma. So, they might be flying under the radar. I suspect someone at some point will be able to do the sleuthing and come up with a third party website which tracks these things. Maybe that's a useful side project for someone, but it's not published, and actually it's not required to be published by the enterprises. In fact, in many cases, if it were required, they would probably turn them off because some of this stuff is commercially sensitive as well. So the answer is, I'm sorry, no. But I'm glad you like the segment, King Crypto. That's it's always good to hear that people are enjoying our chats on a weekly basis.
Well, I do have one quick follow-up question. Eric, the new CEO of Swirls Labs, mentioned that the one use case he's really looking forward to is the Hyundai use case, which is, of course, similar to the Atma.io. And the way he was talking, it sounded like there could be significant transactions. I know you've talked about that a little bit in the past. Do you have any kind of an update or any feedback as to where that might stand at this point?
I haven't spoken to Hyundai. It is a very similar use case. And we are talking about billions of parts and related to sustainability and the Guardian. So I'm very excited, like Eric is, on that particular use case. And they found their way to Hedera independently of being on the governing council or anything else. They just emerged out of nowhere, which is always good to see. But I have no other information other than what Eric's already said, which is we're all excited about. That being the next big one, maybe, or certainly within a batch of the next big ones.
Well, hopefully the fact that he's excited about it means it's not too far off in the future. So hopefully we'll see it hit the network before too long. All right, so EI Moat asks, how do HBAR payments to developers who then need to convert HBAR to fiat currency to cover expenses and salaries create selling pressure on the value of the HBAR? Is this a factor on the HBAR price or not? So, Rob, this is pretty much just a supply and demand equation, but what are your insights?
Well, it is supply and demand, and this is what the HBAR is for, right? The HBAR treasury and the runway that we have, that is the treasury that is left, should be deployed in effective ways, to develop the ecosystem. And so providing HBAR as grants into the developer community, into the projects building on Hedera that are adding value, that are creating utility, that are bringing real world customers into the ecosystem to use the network, is all good. I mean, that's what HBAR is for. There's no point it's sitting in the treasury and not being used. Where that HBAR is deployed in a way which is not effective, that is, that leaks or is used in ways which doesn't create that value, then that's that's not good use of the HBAR treasury and doesn't extend the runway to the point where we can create this amazing network of utility and value. So I would prefer to see a lot more of the HBAR being directed into the developers and the builders on Hedera than anywhere else, to be honest. That's exactly what it's for. So I have no problem with any impact on price, because actually the value it outweighs the impact on price. Obviously, all other impacts on price are bad, but this is actually a good use of the HBAR.
So, Rob, obviously there's been a lot more focus on the balance sheet recently. Do you think that additional focus is going to change things in any ways in the months and years to come?
I hope so. Yeah, I absolutely hope so. I think, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, a tightening of the belt, a refocusing in areas where effective deployment of the capital, the HBAR, is always top of mind, and it is used to the best of the organizations, the ecosystem's abilities. When the governing council votes to allocate a portion of the HBAR treasury to an ecosystem partner in order that they deliver that, the expectation is that they deliver it in a way which is as effective as it possibly can be. That's the purpose of the treasury.
So, Rob, we've had plenty of ups and downs in the ecosystem and, talking about the shifting focus, but it does point to that, morale, how things are going, on the enterprise level, how the morale looks within the community and so forth. It comes from No Man's Internet, who says, hard to put my finger on it, but something has changed. Kind of feels like Ma and Pa are whispering behind the kiddo's back, trying to figure out how to tell us that our beloved pet is getting old and is going to have to live on a farm upstate. But we get to play with the neighbor's dog. Now, Rob, I guess he's talking about us having our chat last week. I thought we kept it pretty upbeat, but what are your thoughts on general morale in the ecosystem and these ups and downs that we experience in the space?
Yeah, I mean, the beloved pet dog is live and kicking and racing around, but the morale sometimes does take a hit, and we have seen that. We've been through the peaks and troughs of these the community sentiment over the number of years that we've been in this. You, Brandon, and I have been witness to quite a few of these cycles. We mustn't forget that Web3 communities tend to be echo chambers, and the echo chambers amplify the sentiment. It's always good to take a step back to understand that maybe the information that is out there is partial. We don't see the whole picture, and that the community itself, as a voice of the retail aspects of the network, need to be heard. But they need to be heard in a way that is cognizant that there are other voices within the wider ecosystem, and those voices may be quieter or may be more focused on fixing perceived and real issues with that as they come up. And not every strategy is writ in the open on X on a daily basis. So the quiet periods don't necessarily mean that it's being ignored. It just means that there's a huddle somewhere where it's being addressed head on, potentially. I'm not party to all of the conversations going on everywhere, but the whispers of the parents of, as the questioner says, we've got to understand that everyone wants the success of the Hedera project and the network and the ecosystem. Everyone has that at heart, everyone that I speak to anyway. And so we will do everything we can from the governing council perspective to ensure that we are the 100-year network that actually builds and keeps on building and achieves its potential as soon as we possibly can. And like you said earlier, sometimes you course correct, or you trim the sails a little, or you cut some of the fat out and make sure that we continue to be fit for purpose. The Governing Council cannot affect any change within the ecosystem partners, but we can provide our position from a governing council, and we can work with those partners on an individual basis to deliver our projects. We can ensure that we engage as far as possible to create the best possible network for everyone. And I've even in these reasonably dark kind of morale lows, I'm actually still incredibly bullish for the network. The projects that are coming through, the projects that are being built, the roadmap. We've got a new roadmap, which I think is a lot more focused around delivery, realistic around delivery of changes to the network that are necessary and prioritized. The recent modularization of the code stack actually is going to make it a lot easier for developers to build, and for the core engineering team to deliver these changes that are now written in this roadmap. And the developer community, by a couple of metrics I've seen recently, is growing. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing developer communities, and that's a great signal. I mean, that's one of the metrics that I most and keenly look at, because the developers are the ones who are building. The community chatterati are only one aspect, right? They drive part of the engine, but the developers and the builders and the founders that move towards Hedera for its best-in-class technology, they're the ones who are driving the change here and the utility. And we've got some amazing use cases. Let's not forget that. In all the noise, we've got the best use cases, the best adoption, the best real-world utility, the most TPS, and now the most developers are being drawn to the network. These are great metrics, and we should always try to take that step back and consider the full landscape. And that's a landscape where the favorite pet dog is live and well, and feasting on raw meat and is as healthy as he has ever been.
And we're covering those use cases week in and week out right here. And we're getting new ones on a regular basis. So, Rob, I know you have a lot of work coming up in the week to come. Do you think we're going to be able to do another one next week?
I'm traveling at the weekend. I'm traveling to Europe, but I look forward to these weekly chats. So absolutely, I'll try and make sure that I'm available to answer whatever questions the community has.
Hopefully we'll make it work. And everybody out there, make sure you continue to drop your questions down there below. And Rob, hopefully we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brandon. Take care.
So I think Rob is hitting the nail on the head. There is a lot to be excited within the Hedera space, and that comes down to the builders. One of the builders in the Hedera space is Hashport. They are our native bridge. We're getting additional bridges in the Hedera space with the likes of Axelar, but the fact that Hashport isn't just continuing to supply services to the Hedera network, but also is expanding. They added a new validator to their validator swarm, and I actually think their validator swarm has a lot more potential beyond just bridging assets into the Hedera ecosystem, even though that is really important. I think that validator swarm could actually do a lot more for the Hedera space, and it's going to be exciting to see how all that develops. Next up, following on what we talked about last week with Kabila and the Kabila Academy, we got Jack to come on and give us some more information about their token and other things they're doing. So let's check that one out.
Greetings, H-Barbarians, and thank you, Brandon, for having me on the show. I just want to quickly run you through the KBL white paper on the Kabila Academy. Everything from the general token details to the official token ID, the why of the KBL token, to fund development and marketing initiatives moving forward, to reward active and loyal community members, and to increase the ecosystem fidelity, right, through the different features that we have on our dApps, and very exciting features such as pay-as-you-go micropayments that will be integrating into dApps like the plazas in the near future. As you can see here, the distribution will be 20% at Genesis and 80% over a 5-year vesting period. Talking of which, the Genesis, you can check out the distribution here on the next page and how it will come about through a community INO and community early airdrops, which we'll touch on more in detail in a second. It also talks about the liquidity allocation and marketing. The community INO, which is coming very, very soon, will be a sale of 7,900 key NFTs, which will have specific utilities and a one-time claim of 15,000 KBL. I really encourage you to read through the details of the INO NFT and the different stages, how to get access. The first 3 phases will be NFT gated for our early community members. And then we have the Kea NFT, which anyone can still obtain for free just by associating this token ID here and holding 1,000 HBAR in the same account before the snapshot, or at the time of the snapshot, should I say, which is coming next week. Next, we have the community early airdrops, which will be a 12-month campaign after the TGE. There will be a specific website claim page where you'll be able to go during this period every day to collect your allocation based on the NFTs that you hold within the Kabila ecosystem. The next page is the token distribution of the KBL, the tokenomics, the vesting periods, etc. All very important information that I encourage you to read through. The ecosystem growth, core development, community, stakeholders, marketing, the Creators Council, which is something we're very proud of to push the ecosystem forward, and of course, the initial liquidity at the TGE. Next up is the utility of the KBL token. It serves as the official utility token driving the Kabila ecosystem forward. And from day one, the KBL token will have utility across our different dApps, including the wallet, our marketplace, and tools, our NFT tooling. So when using these platforms, there will be incentives, there will be discounts, rewards for active members and users. You can go ahead and read through what these discounts look like for the different dApps. And of course, here you have an example of what that could look like as you use the platform. When you're paying KBL, you get a certain discount, let's say using the bulk sender or the launchpad tool when you're launching your collection on the platform. Other ecosystem token utility, again, really encourage you to read through this, and the staking information details will be released very soon. That being said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the team. Our DMs are always open. And again, thanks, Brandon, for having us on the show.
And the next team that I want to highlight is PixFi before we get into network analysis. PixFi is building a DEX aggregator across multiple chains, and they're working with other people within our ecosystem to bring a whole new set of features to the Hedera ecosystem. So let's catch up with Tom and see what he has to say around what they're building. Tom, it's been too long. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Brendan, for having me.
It's my pleasure. So what exactly does PixFi bring to the Hedera space?
I think this is probably the most poignant of all the questions. Basically, what we're bringing is twofold. So it's an NFT marketplace aggregator. So it's going to aggregate 12 different chains at launch. We'll expand over time, of course. And then on the back end, we're going to have the NFT DeFi. So everyone tends to treat DeFi like thinking about just trading of tokens. But the reality is that if you look at the rest of Web3, there are many different applications where you can unlock the liquidity that you have stored in an NFT by trading pairs of NFTs and tokens, and a bunch of other really fun gamified aspects of those things.
So it's completely taking things in a different direction, bringing two very vibrant spaces that we have in the Hedera space, NFTs and the DeFi space, and kind of bringing those together, but not just bringing those together within the Hedera space, but bringing it together across multiple chains.
That's correct. Yeah. So from our perspective, we think that the Hedera community is fantastic. I mean, the NFT space is very vibrant. The DeFi space is as well. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide a vehicle to, bring liquidity in from other places and make it a much more easy onboarding process to bring people in from other ecosystems so that they can really sort of experience the best of what can be offered here, and as well as to give HBARbarians an opportunity really to understand what's the best of the best practices elsewhere as well.
Now, this is a really broad vision. You have a lot going on. You have to deal with different chains. You have to deal with all the different creators out there. What made you want to take on such a big project like this within the Hedera space?
I blame Chan. and I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory. So I started out working in the Hedera space essentially as sort of a business coach for the teams at Hashpack and SaucerSwap, because we all knew each other from overlapping from different discords. And really at one point, May basically challenged me, and she goes, "When are you going to do something?" And I said, "Well, that's interesting." I said, I've given some thought in terms of taking a looking at our space and what we don't have. And what we really don't have is we don't have aggregators. We don't have a way to basically bring our tools and our apps into the same sphere that exists in others. And a lot of that limitation was based on EVM. And so this goes back middle of 2022. But as Hedera started pumping out more and more components of the EVM and making it more robust and more viable, that was really sort of the catalyst point around November of 2022 that we said, you know what, let's give this a shot. And so we basically started the process from there. And now here we are, fast forward a year and a half later, and we're just getting ready to do our first mint and start opening the door in a closed beta.
Well, that's what we want. We want ambitious projects to build on Hedera. So before we move on to the next thing, I'm just curious, can you explain exactly what an aggregator is?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people in the NFT space will understand what OpenSea is. And OpenSea really, I think, is sort of one of the benchmarks. But one of the other benchmarks would be a marketplace like Magic Eden on Solana. Those marketplaces now support multiple chains. And that's really sort of what an aggregator is, with one caveat. There are no listings on PixFi. Right, the listings that you make. So if you're going to make Hedera listings and Hedera purchases on PixFi, those are being done at SentX. And so in the case of OpenSea, when you're making listings and making purchases off of OpenSea from their aggregator perspective, you're still doing work on their home marketplace. We don't have a home marketplace, right? Our marketplace is everyone's marketplace.
All right, that makes perfect sense. So whether it's a creator, whether it's one of these marketplaces, or whether it's a collector, what's their first step to get involved? Sometimes it can be kind of daunting getting involved with a new platform like this.
Exactly. And so that was one of the guiding premises that we began with, is that the onboarding needed to be something easy that your grandmother could do. We wanted to think about that user experience, about that user journey, where you hear something about NFTs, and you basically get access to the link to this website. And now the process of onboarding to that point, that's where the daunting part starts, right? Because in order to get involved in any of these marketplaces, what do you need? You need to have a wallet. That wallet needs to have tokens, right? So initially that kickoff point is sort of a barrier of entry for many people, because they just don't understand how this all works. And then, I'm not even going to get into key management and all those other pieces. But what we wanted to start off with was something that was very easily accessible. So it's a social login, so it's an email login. So we partnered with Magic Labs. Magic Labs makes the wallet as a service plugin for apps. It's very popular with many large enterprises. So it's built to be enterprise grade. It supports 27 chains and growing. I think you recently would have seen that Galaxy recently also adopted the Magic Labs wallet. And so that was sort of the one entry point there. And then the other piece, obviously, is how do you start funding all of these things? And that was where we basically said, okay, well, obviously this is going to have Stripe integrated into the workflow as well. So let's just make it easy for people to be able to onboard. Not worrying about plugins to MoonPay. I'm not worried about all those other things. I'm thinking about, okay, if you want to go and have that experience of buying your first NFT, you're going to use your email to log in and create an account on PixFi, and then you're going to basically use your credit card to make that first purchase. Boom, done.
All right. So what do you have as far as features and chains right now, and what's next on your roadmap?
Great. So So we're just about to go off live with our mint on the 26th, and that's going to be for our Founders Token collection. And that token collection was designed by a very talented NFT artist named Bionassus, and it represents the 12 chains that we'll be supporting and being integrated in 2024. So it includes Hedera, Ethereum, Polygon, Solana. Then the next wave is going to be Avalanche, Algorand, Aptos, and Binance Smart Chain, right? BNB. And then the last wave will be Phantom, Tezos, Moonbeam, and Near. So those are going to be sort of the first chains that are going to be opened up. And then on the DeFi side, the first tools that we'll be putting in place on the DeFi side will be an NFT rental contract. There'll be a peer-to-peer rental contract, as well as a peer-to-peer lending contract. This will be a nice balance to what we're seeing coming out in the ecosystem with Bonzo Finance. So you'll eventually be able to, take your tokens, create, get yourself, set up a lending protocol there. You can take your NFTs and do the same thing at PixFi.
Tom, what I love is, I've heard SentX, how you're working with them. I've heard Bonzo Finance around the lending and borrowing. It's great to see how the different pieces and parts of this ecosystem are coming together and working together to improve your products across the board.
We're all family. Yeah. I mean, we're all
exactly
right. And we all have to get along, and we all have to understand the role that we each play. Just because we have a wallet built in to PixFi doesn't mean that Hashpack is not a significantly important partner for us, because essentially I don't want to have all of the token swaps and all the other aspects that you would typically find in a wallet. And so this is where having that partnership with Hashpack, having that partnership with Saucer Swap, all of that, right? Plus Bonzo, SentX, all of that combined, Headstarter, Hashport. These are all critical pieces that we'll have that'll be part of that whole puzzle, and several other, I think, logos that you've seen announced that have done work through the foundation as well will also be taking part, right? So things like XP.network, right, for basically moving NFTs across chain by wrapping them and bridging them to other places. Again, these are all things that the foundation has been doing to basically build that infrastructure, and we're at a point now where we can all really start leveraging and taking advantage of all of that. There's I think, a bright future ahead for what's going to happen on Hedera as a network. It's just taking us a little bit longer time to get there where we would like to have been.
It happened slowly at first and then all at once. Well, Tom, thank you so much for swinging on today and explaining PixFi and everything you're working on.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Brandon. And just remember, everybody, PixFi.io. Come check out the mint on the 26th, and then there'll be we'll have 2 more mints after that, spread out about 6 weeks apart, and then after that, you get into the INO and you get access to the Pix token.
Now, I know we've covered a lot already, but there is a lot going on and actually hitting the Hedera network in terms of transactions. So let's take a look at network analysis. We had a dip in transaction volume midweek leading up to some upgrades, but have since recovered, and though it's been volatile, we're sitting at just under 1,800 transactions per second at the time of recording. That said, I was impressed with the max TPS of about 9,400, which isn't a record, but it's still a really high number. After those upgrades, we did see a bump in the time to consensus finality to about 4.3 seconds. I'm going to follow up and see if I can get some more information on that. But another impressive figure was we managed to create over 86,000 accounts just in the past 7 days. Moving down to our fungible tokens, Wrapped HBAR again took the top spot, followed by Karate, Dovu, Sauce, and the native version of USDC. Next up, we have Energy Trade Token, the bridged version of USDC, Hashpack's Pack Token, Jam, and the Gaming Studio Nadas Token. Looking at our NFTs, the Saucer Swap Liquidity Provider NFT remains in the top spot, followed by Hedera Monkeys. Next up, we have the Road Code Access Card, the Slime World NFT, and the Times WTF. There were also a couple Lithos Rant CPU NFTs in the top 10, the H-Suite Liquidity Provider token, and finally the Blade Wallet Loyalty Card. And a quick look at Hedera DeFi shows we're down to $72 million in total value locked in the Hedera ecosystem. $67 million of that is on Saucer Swap, $3 million on H-Suite, and $1.8 million on HeliSwap. Looking at the HBAR and crypto markets, Bitcoin is down 2% on the day and on the week to $63,400. HBAR is down 3% on the day and 8% on the week to 7.9 cents. We are in an area of support that goes back to mid-May, which is actually the last time I bought HBAR. HBAR, we are in the summer doldrums, so absent any catalyst, I expect sideways movement in the general crypto space for the next few months. That said, this is Hedera, and I certainly think it's possible that we could have market-moving news in the next few months. Looking forward to next week, we are going to have a Karate Combat space. We're going to get one of the co-founders on there. We're going to get some other big fans leading up to Karate Combat 47. I'd like you to associate the KBL token. That's from Kabila. That's 0.0.5989978. We are going to have a Shark Bites next week, so make sure you drop your questions down below if you have any questions about the Hedera ecosystem or the HBAR economy. And finally, we are going to have that interview with Carlos. He is the CEO of SealSQ, as well as WiseSat. So if you're curious about that, you can get some background by watching that interview I did with him just a few weeks ago, but we're going to be getting a lot more information. So if you have any questions for Carlos, make sure you drop those down in the comments as well.